All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a wild story straight out of the Mahabharata, which, if you know the text, is easily one of the most massive, complex epic poems ever recorded. We're zeroing in on a legendary monarch whose absolutely relentless pursuit of greatness literally left him hanging. We're talking about King Yayati, the son of Nahusha. And look, it's so important to realize this isn't just your standard, dusty historical myth. It's a profound masterclass in the extremes of human discipline, the dizzying heights of ultimate success, and a super sudden, incredibly steep downfall that defies the very laws of nature.
Picture this bizarre and striking scene from the ancient texts. We've got a mortal man who has completely conquered the celestial realms. He's won the ultimate prize. He's up there enjoying absolute bliss among the gods. But then, completely out of nowhere, he is violently thrown out of paradise by Indra, the chief of the celestials. But here's the absolute wildest part. Instead of crashing all the way down to Earth to meet a pretty messy, tragic doom, he just freezes. He's suspended. He's stuck mid-air, right in the firmament. It's this fascinating metaphysical purgatory where he's lingering endlessly between the divine world and the world of mortal men.
I mean, have you ever achieved your absolute wildest dream, poured your blood, sweat, and tears into reaching the absolute summit, only to feel like the floor just randomly fell out from under you? Yati's story is the ultimate ancient example of exactly that phenomenon, which naturally begs the question, right? What incredible journey led him to this exact unbelievable moment? How does someone even achieve a status where they are hurled from heaven, only to break the laws of gravity, physics, and fate on the way down? Well, to grasp the sheer scale of his literal suspension, we really have to look at the foundation of his life.
So, Section 1. A king steps down, leaving the throne. The juxtaposition of his two lives is honestly staggering. On one side, the text explicitly calls him the Lord of Earth, a guy with the splendor of the sun and the progenitor of the massive, legendary Puru race. He was at the absolute peak of ancient civilization, wielding unimagined wealth and influence. But he consciously gave all of that up. He actually cast out his older sons, including Yadu, sending them away among the foreign outcast tribes, the Mlekshas, to ensure a secure succession, and put his youngest son, Puru, on the throne. Then, he trades his golden crown for a dense, unforgiving forest. He swapped a life of absolute royal luxury for eating bitter roots and eventually, quite literally, standing on one leg.
Now, the specific term for what he was doing is vanaprastha. And this wasn't just some standard early retirement plan or a quiet, relaxing vacation in a cabin somewhere. It was an intense, rigorously disciplined practice of stepping away from worldly attachments. Yayati retreated to the forest to live among the Brahmanas. He brought his mind and his passions under total, unwavering control, fully severing ties to the ego of his past royal life. He gratified the gods and his ancestors through incredibly strict sacrifices, pouring libations of clarified butter into the fire and entertaining guests with nothing more than the simple fruits and roots he gathered from the forest. Which brings us to Section 2, the extreme ascetic, pushing human limits. Because Yayati didn't just casually live out his days peacefully in the woods, the source text describes an escalating, mind-bending regimen of austerities that completely defies mortal comprehension. First, he spends a full 1,000 years supporting his life just by gleaning scattered corn seeds off the ground, a literal millennium of barely eating. Then, he dials the intensity up. For 1 full year, he takes a strict vow of silence, lives upon air alone, and doesn't sleep a single wink. The next year, he practices the severest austerities surrounded by 4 blazing fires with the scorching sun directly overhead, again, surviving only on air. Finally, he caps off this extreme survivalism by standing erect on just one leg for 6 entire months. Just wrap your head around the sheer terrifying willpower being described there.
Section 3. Reaching the heavens, a celestial ascension. The crazy thing is, this staggering level of discipline actually worked. By totally conquering his physical form and burning away his worldly desires, King Yayati of sacred deeds successfully ascended to heaven. The text explicitly notes that he covered both heaven and earth with the fame of his achievements. In the ancient world, this wasn't just about having people know your name. It meant his deeds possessed this undeniable cosmic resonance. He was a true celebrity of the cosmos, spoken of in revered tones by gods and mortal men alike. He attained a life of pure bliss, fully earning his place at the highest possible peak through superhuman effort. But we can't forget Section 4, the Great Fall, hurled down by Indra. So, despite that 1,000+ years of unimaginable effort, His time in paradise is abruptly cut short. The ruler of the gods, Indra himself, hurls Yayati down from the celestial region. But here is where the story gets so incredibly rich. The momentum of his past sacred deeds was apparently so strong, so deeply woven into the fabric of the universe, that he didn't plummet all the way back to the dirt. He was left suspended, just floating in that mysterious state in the firmament. It's such a powerful visual metaphor. You have a man whose historical achievements are simply too massive for Earth, but who has somehow suddenly become fundamentally unworthy of heaven.
But wait, the text throws us a fascinating twist right away. The narrator tells us this lonely suspension wasn't the final chapter of his story. Eventually, miraculously, Yayati did regain entry to the region of the Celestials. And when he made his grand return, he arrived in the elite company of these legendary celestial figures, Vasuman, Ashtaka, Pratardana, and Sivi. He didn't just quietly sneak back through the side door of paradise. He returned alongside the absolute VIPs of the ancient cosmic order, fully restored to glory.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5. The mystery continues, a tale unfinished.
Because as an audience, we're basically left holding a massive missing puzzle piece. We know the what of his epic life, but we don't know the why. And we definitely aren't alone in feeling this way. The narrator of this tale, a sage named Vaisampayana, is suddenly interrupted by his listener, King Janamejaya. And Janamejaya perfectly mirrors our own intense curiosity, demanding, I desire to hear from me in detail why Yayati was hurled therefrom and why also he gained readmittance. He wants the full, uncut story of Yayati's life in heaven and his exile. It's a brilliant narrative device. The text itself is actively acknowledging just how compelling and unresolved this cliffhanger really is. It leaves us deeply hooked on this ancient thriller. Think about it. After entirely conquering the human body, enduring blazing fires, starvation, and over 1,000 years of extreme solitude to achieve literal perfection, what hidden hubris, what single catastrophic misstep could possibly anger the gods enough to undo it all? And maybe more importantly, what does a fallen hero have to do to earn his way back? It poses a deeply human question that still resonates with us today. When we finally achieve our absolute highest, most ambitious goals, does our ego become our heaviest anchor? Does the pride of reaching the summit become the very thing that pushes us off the edge? Keep that question in your mind as you think about the incredible suspended state of King Yayati.